Yo, what's going on, Senpai Squad? Welcome back to a brand new video. Today we'll review for Chapter 5 of Gambler's Parade. Now, this chapter was primarily a setup chapter, and you could definitely tell that the pacing for this series has slowed down a bit and kind of just gotten into the swing of things. I think this is the type of pacing we can expect going forward. Maybe a little bit more than this, because like I said, this was still primarily a setup chapter. But when you compare it to the first, I want to say 3 chapters, I don't think it's ever going to be that quick again, not for a long time anyway. I mean, primarily that comes down to the fact that those chapters were really long in comparison to what we're going to have going forward now. After, I think pretty much all series do it, you know, they always start off with like 70 odd pages, and then chapter 2 goes down to like 50. Chapter 3 goes down to like 30, and then after that it's all usually like between 15 to 20 pages per week. So there's always that, obviously, contributing towards the slower pacing, if that's what you'd want to call it. But still, like I said, it was still a setup chapter, just kind of covering the rules of this oxygen roulette game. Also, I almost feel a little bit baited for this chapter, because if you guys remember last week, they actually ended the chapter by saying, next week, a dead body already. And I was like, what? Already? It's like chapter 5, obviously. We're going to have like a death. Like, I was like, is he going to be Slash? I believe his name is Slash, the bad guy of this this arc. I was like, is it going to be Kamude? Karin? One of Slash's, like, girls? Like, who's gonna die? But, you know, they did a great job of clickbaiting me in, kind of, and getting me hooked and excited for this episode to bait me in. And it ended up being just an already dead person who actually died in a game of oxygen roulette prior to this one. And Slash commented on, oh yeah, that guy, I beat him before and he died in this gamble, you know. I don't even remember his name and all that. So, also the art when they first showed that body was magnificent. Now, I always talk about how incredible I think the art in Gambler's Parade is, and I just feel like I'm going to constantly keep saying it, because every single chapter I can guarantee there'll be at least one panel which will look gorgeous. But one of the things I want to cover the most in this chapter review is kind of like the rules of the game, because I feel as though maybe some of you guys maybe didn't catch on to what the rules are, because I sometimes, when they're explaining a long ton of rules, I take a minute and I struggle to kind of stay with it at times, if that makes sense. But I'm going to try my best to simplify them all for you today. Now, for those of you who've seen Hunter x Hunter, it's essentially a little bit like the betting match that Leorio had in the Hunter exam. However, this time they are gambling with a percentage of concentrated oxygen. So you start with 20% concentrated oxygen in a tank which you breathe from, and 20% is just like the normal amount of concentrated oxygen that you and I breathe every day. So you play a game of roulette, and every time you spin, you spend 1 point. So you do a spin, and then the other person does a spin, and together they are 2 points spent in that round, in that spin. And after each spin, you can choose whether or not you want to re-roll or stick with the number you've got. The goal is for you to get your ball when spinning the roulette to land on a higher number than your opponent's, but you can't actually see what number your opponent has unless you choose to check and stick with your number. The numbers go up to 36. However, the number 0 beats all numbers except from a double 0. The double 0 will just win you a round no matter what. So let's say you land on a 24. You can then choose to stick with that number, or you can re-roll it to try and potentially get an even higher number. However, by re-rolling it, you're then spending another point to add towards the total. I'll explain what happens with all these points in a minute. However, if you do choose to stick and your opponent re-rolls, you can then get another choice after that spin to decide if you want to stick again, or maybe you then want to try and re-roll to get something higher instead. You can do this up to a total of 5 times. So let's say you both decide to re-roll 5 times and hit the max amount. That means you've both put in 5 points contributing towards the total. So that means that 10 points would have been spent during that round, and the loser, the one who actually ended up with the lowest number, gets that amount in a percentage taken away from their oxygen. So 10 points in that round equals 10%, 5 points 5%, 2 points 2%, you get the idea. The lower your percentage of oxygen, obviously the much more difficult it is to think straight, concentrate, stay awake and everything, and if it goes too low too quickly, you even have a possibility of dying. However, if you win the round, you don't get that percentage added back. So once you've lost a percentage of your concentrated oxygen, there is no way to get that oxygen back. So hopefully I explained that okay, because I understand it can be quite difficult to understand, but I believe that once you break it down a little bit, it becomes extremely simple to follow. But anyway, Commode refuses to play, which shocked me. I did not think he'd refuse to play. However, I still think that this oxygen gambling game will commence still. I still think that's going to happen, because otherwise why would they have spent a full chapter explaining the rules to such detail if it was never going to happen? So I think the whole refusing thing right at the end of the chapter is a little bit of a bait. Again, a bit like the whole dead body thing last week. So yeah, I still believe that the whole oxygen thing's going to still happen. And how I expect it to play out is a little bit like how, you know, when my main characters do that thing where they get a choice. I'll explain it. So you know when a villain says to them something like, I'll give you 5 chances to do this incredibly difficult task. If you don't do it within those 5 attempts, I will kill you. And then the main character's usually something like, 5 attempts? No, not 5 attempts. I only need 1. And then they just go and like do the incredible difficult task within 1 attempt, and everyone's like, whoa, no way, the odds on that are crazy. You know, typical shonen main character trope. Am I right? I think I'm right. So that's how I expect that to kind of carry out after this, but let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. One thing I do hope we get very, very soon is actually a bit of a backstory on Komude, because he's a complete badass and I love him to pieces. However, I don't want his only character trait to be a badass. You know, I don't want him to end up being the edgy badass character that doesn't really have anything to him other than that. And I think there's 3 main things that we need to learn about his character very soon. 1, why does he hate gambling so much, and why has he devoted his life to just getting everyone to stop gambling and just killing all gamblers? Why? Secondly, why is he so incredibly good at gambling? Where did he learn all of this from? And thirdly, the big one, what the hell is his transformation? Because some people seem shocked when they see it for the first time, and to other people it just seems completely normal. So what is this abnormal form that he undertakes when he gambles? I have my theory a little bit, not to the whole transformation thing. That badass as hell, but I don't understand it at all. But my theory is something along the lines that here we go. I think that one of his parents, probably like his dad, was probably a world famous incredible gambler, like a champion, something like that. And Komude was raised when he was younger through gambling, hence why he's so good, because he spent a ton of his childhood doing gambling. However, I reckon that his dad would have gotten so obsessed with gambling that it got to the point where it overtook him, and Komude just kind of saw the evolution of his dad go from this cool guy that was fun to play with into this kind of like deranged and just taken over father. And then gambling would have went on to kill him or something, and then that's why he hates gambling so much, because it took away his father, and his father kind of got taken over by gambling, you know, all of that type of stuff. It's nothing new. It's pretty simple and kind of predictable, but I don't think it would be a bad backstory either. But yeah, they're my opinions anyway, and I hope you enjoyed this chapter review. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video. Leave your thoughts and opinions on this chapter and everything I've spoke about in the comment section down below. As always, subscribe if you're not already to become a member of the Senpai Squad. This was my first chapter review of Gambler's Parade. I really hope you guys give it a chance and people start reading this series, because it really is criminally underrated at the minute. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in another video, but until then, peace.